Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Terry. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi there.
Good. How are you doing this morning, Penny?
Very well. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'd like to talk about the wind turbines and my concerns about them. I'm concerned that we're going to be set up for, another boondoggle, I guess.
How so? What's your concern?
Well, basically, for our water royalties, the payments begin with cost recovery. Those few little words.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
But what does the cost recovery include?
Just the monies spent to become operational, and then no operational costs will be included in cost recovery. It's simply the recoup of, like, for instance, if World Energy GH2 gets all of their 3 proposals through, I think the last one I remember is maybe 12, maybe $14 billion. So I brought this up repeatedly. The royalties seem kind of meager anyway, but to know that they're not coming until John Risley recovers all of those billions is a long way down the road.
Yeah, it is. And do you know if it's going to include like ongoing maintenance or, say, hurricane damage to turbines in the future?
No.
Or anything like that?
No, it's not supposed to. It's simply about the monies spent to, whether it be to clear all the land, to erect all the turbines, to put up whatever they need for transmission, to create their hydrogen facility, their ammonia facility. But when they become operational, that's it. The cost recovery model stops there.
So when they become operational, we're off the hook, and they've recovered the costs, and they need to start paying.
Yep.
Okay. So when they do start paying, I looked at the price that they're going to pay for water. I think it's going to be, I think it's 50 cents for 1,000 liters of water.
It's $500 per 1,000 meters cubed.
Yes, which is 1 million liters, yes.
Yeah.
And so it works out to 50 cents for 1,000 liters. I really don't see how we can make any money doing that with that kind of a charge for water. And in places, water is more expensive than oil. And here, Newfoundland we're practically giving it away. I just don't understand how we're going to make money doing that.
Well, very little. And of course, it'd be applicable to all. They will use a lot of water. And there's different concerns with water sources for different projects. Like, for instance, the only one that's really anywhere close to being built is on the Port Peninsula. Their water source is an old commercial reservoir that's not potable. It's an old Abitibi reservoir. They say they don't even need all the water that would be in and replenished in that reservoir. But you're right. The water royalty, so let's see if I can get this. All right. So, yeah, you're right. $500 per 1,000 meters cubed. That's whether it's licensed and or used water.
Which is 1 million liters of water for $500.
Yeah, I got the number. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then there's different tiers, right? So when they talk about cost recovery, then there's 3 different tiers of water. So it's 10% after one-time cost recovery. It increases to 20% after they recover double the cost. Then it's rate 3 is 25% after 3 times cost recovery. So there is an escalator therein, but we're also talking about 3 times cost recovery means that after they recover $36 billion is before we get to rate 3. So that's a huge number. Some of the, and of course there's a wind electricity tax. $4,000 per megawatt, and that's the entirety of installed capacity. The Crown Lands lease is 3.5% of the market value, and there's another. That's the pardon me.
The lease is 7%. I think it's the reserve land is 3.5%.
Yeah. Okay. There, you're exactly right. Reserve lands 3.5%, 7%, and the lease lands. Yeah.
And the price of the land, like say for 7%, what's a average hectare worth in Newfoundland? $7,500.
Kind of depends where it is,
Yeah, it depends where it is. Well, if we use $7,500 for an example, then the annual charge on that is going to be $525.
That's right.
A year.
Yep.
For 1 hectare.
Yeah, and it's simply lease. And if the land is not used for the described purpose, and in this case wind turbines, then they can't use the land at all.
Yep. And for any land that's reserved, it's half that at $262.50 if the land value, the hectare is worth $7,500. Again, why are we charging so small amounts for our water and our land? Do our politicians not value our resources? I really don't understand that.
It has always seemed quite low to me, and we've asked the government about this repeatedly, whether it be the cost recovery model, and that comes with some concerns people have about some clever accounting, and that remains to be seen how tight we can be on that front. But I've asked this directly of the government several times, especially when it first came out, when they called the wind hydrogen fiscal framework.
Yep.
And you're right, I agree with you. It seems like pittance for what is pretty valuable to us in the long run.
Exactly. And it's valuable to the wind turbine proponents, because if we didn't have the land and we didn't have the water, they would not be here. They're here because of the land, and they're here because of the water.
Yeah, and proximity
it's valuable to them.
Yeah, and the proximity to deep water ports and the proximity to the market, which is the European Union. So you're right.
Yeah, and so really we should be charging, I have no idea how much we should be charging, but a whole lot more than what we are charging. I really don't see how how we are proposed to make money. Have you seen the breakdown of where the money is going to come from, and which years, and how many years it's going to take before we do receive money?
What money? Just so I understand the question.
I think Andrew Parsons said we're going to make $11.7 billion from these 4 projects, from WGH2, Everwind, Exploits Valley, and the ABO.
Yeah, and that does not include that does not include Pattern Energy, as far as I recall. And you're right, that's the number he uses, and that's over the course of 35 years. If every single turbine proposed gets built, and every gig of power that they talk about generating is done, so that number is a floating target, because it sounds impressive. $11 billion, that's a lot of money, but of course that includes everything to be done as currently proposed, and of which there's only one of 4 proposals that is anywhere close to the finish line, and they're nowhere close. That number does not include Pattern, because the first phase of Pattern Energy's project out of the Port of Argentia is not on Crown land, so that hasn't been factored in yet.
Right on, yeah. And when we look at the environment, like the government is calling this green energy, I really don't know how to wrap my head around how they can call it green energy, when the land that they're going to be destroying is bogs, fens, wetlands, and forests. All of these, the Mother Nature, I guess, evolved over millennia and captured the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide included, for millennia, and it will go on to capture these greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide for millennia to come, as long as the land is not destroyed or disturbed. So calling, I don't know how these wind turbines can compete with Mother Nature. I really don't see that happening at all. And calling it green is in my mind, is just a marketing slogan.
Well, it's like everything else, and I've had this conversation several times on the program. If we're being honest, where we're talking about generation of power, there is nothing but nothing that's 100% green. Things will be greener than other options, right? So, oil might be cleaner than coal, and coke might be cleaner than coal, and hydro is cleaner than both, and natural gas will be cleaner than oil, and solar will be cleaner than something else, and so will wind. But nothing comes at zero environmental impact. Of course not. No such thing.
No. And like I said, I know you call it greener, but they're labeling it as green. They're not labeling it as greener.
I can't do much about what they say. I just can control what I say.
I agree. I totally agree. But I'm just saying they're calling it green. In my mind, it isn't green, because the land is sequestering greenhouse gases, including carbon, right now, that's going to be released into the atmosphere when they disturb these lands to put up the turbines and the roads and the power lines. So I'd like to see their calculations of how much the land is going to release in carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases, and how much they're going to recoup from the wind turbines.
Yeah, and I don't even know if we've got any real firm understanding, and it's really not something on top of my mind, but I wonder what the business model actually looks like for the proponents. Everything we look at, the Germans aren't ready for it. And the federal government has downgraded their forecast drastically regarding the potential value of the global hydrogen market. So I don't know. And I don't even know how much luck they would have trying to get access to capital now, because we don't even have definitions from the federal government, because there's a long way between 15% of a tax subsidy to 40%. Yeah. It'd be different in Nova Scotia, given the makeup of their grid versus this province. So there's a lot yet to be understood.
There is. And that's the other thing, the money involved. Like when John Risley first came out, he said there would be no public monies involved in the wind turbines. Of course, we all know now that that's not the case. There's billions and billions of dollars they're going to be given to the proponents in tax returns, in tax incentives, I guess.
Before we ever heard from John Risley Perry, that federal money had already been announced. I mean, that was out there for a variety of different kinds of alternative projects right across the country, including these. So, yeah, and we still don't know exactly how that's going to work again. And on top of that, those subsidies were already there, and Mr. Risley, even in this program, said he would require no money, but then, lo and behold, secured a $128 million line of credit with the federal government. So there is public money. Might not be any provincial money directly, but there is certainly federally. Well, at this stage, I can only go by the questions and the answers I've received. Any private, or pardon me, any public provincial money? No. Every time I've asked it, that's been the answer.
Yeah, I'm just afraid that when if these ever do get off the ground, and well, we all know how fragile they are. We can see the videos on YouTube. They're catching fire. When their brakes fail, the turbines just spin so fast they fall. They break apart. Well, and now off of Nantucket, the brand new wind turbine blades, they're breaking apart. They're, I guess, faulty manufacturing, I imagine.
One turbine, apparently. And so that wasn't shards of fiberglass coming off the leading edge. That was a full and complete failure. Now, failure numbers regarding the entirety of the wind turbine world is pretty low. It's not non-existent, but it is pretty low.
Yes, that's right. It's not non-existent, and I guess what's going to complicate that is we're going to have thousands of them here.
Maybe.
So each one is going to exponentially increase, I think, the failure that we're going to expect, because there's going to be so many thousands here onshore and so many thousands offshore. I can't imagine how many are going to fail.
And I can't imagine that's actually going to happen, to be honest, Terry. I can't see a day where there's thousands onshore and thousands offshore. I just don't see it.
Well, that's what their government is saying, though. Well, is it not?
That's what the proponents are saying. But
and the government, as far as I know, the government's agreeing with those numbers. So that's all we can go by.
Yeah, but that's also a long way down the actual ability to raise the money to do all they say they're going to do.
Certainly, I agree with that. But I'm just going on by what we're being told. So, like I say, they're calling it greener. I don't think it's green. They're calling us these. They're telling us it's thousands. You know, how many thousands? I'm not sure, because the number it's like a floating target. It keeps changing. And so I'm just going by the numbers that they're putting out there.
Fair enough. I do appreciate the time. I have to get to the break, Terry, but thanks for doing this.
Okay, Patty. Nice talking to you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And you know, one thing that is part of the conversation, and for some people it's a concern, is just simply the magnitude of these turbines. For World Energy on the Port of Port Peninsula, 200 meters tall. I mean, that is gargantuan compared to some other ones that we're familiar with. Up from Muse, the tallest one is 85 meters tall. How tall is Signal Hill? It's only 167 meters tall. How tall is the Confederation Building? It's like 64 meters tall. These are 200.